I was slicing onions for stuffing when the call came in. Mom's name flashed across the screen, and for the briefest second, my chest fluttered with hope. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe there'd be an apology, or an invitation, or even just a, "Hey, how are you doing?" I wiped my hands on my apron and answered. Her voice was as crisp as a frostbitten apple. "Hi, Dean. Listen, I won't dance around this. We all agreed, you're not welcome at Christmas this year." The words struck harder than I'd anticipated. My hand tensed around the phone. "We all." "Yes," she said. "Me. Your father. Jenna. Even Aunt Cora. After last year." "What about last year?" "You know exactly what," she snapped. "You brought that person and made a scene." "You mean my boyfriend? The one you all ignored the whole evening?" She didn't answer that directly. "Look, we just don't want tension. We want a normal Christmas." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Ah, yes. Normal. With fake cheer, backhanded compliments, and pretending we don't have a single problem." Her tone grew colder. "Dean, this isn't a negotiation. You're not invited." I held my breath, waiting for her to say something else. She didn't, so I hung up, and that was the moment something in me snapped. Not with rage, not even grief, really. More like a quiet, final shift. A bridge collapsing from rot that had gone ignored for years. I walked to the living room where Alex, my partner of 3 years, was fluffing the pillows on the couch. He turned when he saw my face. "Was that your mom?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm officially uninvited from Christmas." Apparently it was a group decision. He hesitated, as if unsure whether to be angry for me. "Do you want to talk about it?" But I didn't. Not then. What I wanted was to reclaim something that had always been quietly stolen from me: respect, power, dignity. And the funny thing is, I had the perfect lever in my hand. My parents had been living in my house for almost 8 years. It was meant to be temporary. Dad lost his job during the market crash. They sold their house at a loss. I had just gotten a promotion at the time and had a 3-bedroom place with a spacious basement. I offered them a place to stay rent-free until they got back on their feet. Except temporary turned into semi-permanent, and then into we just live here now. The mortgage was in my name. The bills came to my account. I paid everything: electricity, gas, water, Wi-Fi, groceries, right down to the soft pretzel snacks Mom liked. And in return, I got cold dinners, silence at the table, and sideways glances when I held Alex's hand. They didn't say anything direct about him after that first tense Christmas. They didn't have to. The message was clear in the way Dad would clear his throat and walk out of the room when we sat down to watch something. Or the way Mom only set out 2 plates when I came home with Alex. She always acted like it was just an oversight. Alex endured it with quiet grace. But I saw how it wore on him, and I hated that I let it continue. But now the mask was off. That night, I logged into my banking app and canceled the auto payment for the mortgage. The next day, I visited a lawyer. I explained the situation, every awkward, painful detail. The months of disrespect, the years of gaslighting, the fresh wound from a mother who said, "We all agreed," like it was some kind of intervention. The lawyer raised an eyebrow as I laid it all out. "So let me get this straight. You own the house. Your parents are staying there rent-free. And now they're excluding you from your own family holiday." I nodded. "And you want them out?" "Yesterday." She smiled. "Let's start with a formal notice to vacate. 30 days is the standard in the state. After that, if they're still squatting, we go to court." I sent the notice through registered mail, and I also taped a copy to their bedroom door. Petty? Maybe. But therapeutic? Absolutely. 2 days later, I got the first call. Mom again. "You're evicting us!" she shrieked, no preamble. "You can't do this. This is our home." "No," I said calmly. "It's mine. You wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for us. We raised you. We gave up so much. And then you moved in and never left. You treat me like a stranger in my own home. Like an embarrassment. We never said that. You didn't have to." There was a long silence, and then a sharp, wounded whisper. "You're not the son we raised." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. "I know, and thank God for that." The next few weeks were a mess of passive-aggressive texts, Facebook rants from Aunt Cora, and one particularly hilarious attempt from Jenna to stage a family intervention via group chat. I didn't respond to any of it. I focused on what came next. Alex and I found a short-term rental and started moving our things. We left the master bedroom almost untouched. My parents had been using it for years. The place already felt like theirs. They stayed until the very last day of the notice, and then some. But eventually, they left. Or rather, they were forced to, after a court-mandated eviction, complete with a sheriff's visit and all. I wasn't proud of how it ended, but I also didn't regret it. You don't owe permanence to people who weaponize love. Christmas came and went. Alex and I spent it in a cabin in the woods. Just us, a fire, wine, and snow falling through the pines. It was the most peaceful holiday I'd had in years. There was a moment, after the last log crackled out, when Alex turned to me and said, "Do you miss them?" I thought about it. The laughter from childhood. Dad's awful caroling. Mom's mulled cider. The family traditions before they turned bitter. "I miss who they were," I said. "Not who they are." He nodded and didn't press further. Months passed. My parents never reached out again. Neither did Jenna or Cora. But I did get one message, from my cousin Elise. She'd heard what happened. She told me she was proud. That she wished she'd had the courage to do something similar with her own parents. That message meant more than I expected. It reminded me that we don't have to accept toxicity just because it shares our DNA. The house eventually sold. We bought a new place, a cozy bungalow with a porch swing and a lemon tree in the yard. Every room was painted with colors we chose. Every corner filled with laughter we created. There were no ghosts. No shame. Just love. There were moments I'd walk into the kitchen and expect to see my father sipping coffee and pretending not to see me. Or catch myself bracing for the quiet judgment from my mother's eyes every time Alex and I touched. But the silence here was different. It wasn't loaded. It wasn't hostile. It was peaceful. Alex thrived in it. He started painting again, something he'd shelved during our final year in the old house. Our garage quickly became his studio. Splashes of cobalt and ochre bloomed from the walls, the canvases, like he was finally allowed to breathe color into the world again. As for me, I started writing. Not just scribbles and journals, but real essays, reflections on boundaries, family estrangement, queerness, and housing power dynamics. I sent one to a popular medium-sized publication just to see what would happen. They published it. The response was staggering. Emails poured in. Messages from strangers, some in their 60s, others still in high school, thanking me for saying things they hadn't found the words for. People who had let guilt chain them to toxic relatives, who were told family is everything by the same people who tore them down, who had been made to feel selfish for wanting peace. I wasn't just healing. I was helping others heal too. Then, about 8 months after the eviction, Jenna reached out. It was a short email. Cold, corporate almost. "Hey, I think we should talk. I've been thinking about how everything went down." I waited 2 days before replying. "Happy to talk, but only if the goal is understanding, not blame." She responded quickly. "Fair. Coffee." We met at a small place halfway between her office and mine. I got there early, heart-thudding. She walked in 10 minutes late, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. "Dean," she said. No hug, just a wary smile. We sat. We ordered. We talked. And for once, we didn't pretend. I didn't realize how much I absorbed their attitudes until I got distance from it, she said halfway through her latte. "It's like they poisoned us with politeness." I blinked. "That's actually accurate. I thought you were overreacting, that you were always too sensitive." But then Mom started saying similar things about my daughter, about how she dresses, about her pronouns. And I saw it. "She's 14, right?" "Yeah." Her face hardened. "And she told me she doesn't feel safe around Mom." That was a wake-up call. We sat in silence for a long beat. "I'm not asking to undo everything," she said finally. "But I'd like to start fixing what I can." I nodded. "We can start slow." Things didn't magically return to some perfect sibling bond. But over time, Jenna showed up, in small ways, consistently. She invited us over for dinner. She told her daughter about what happened, and her daughter hugged me the moment we walked in. "I'm glad you stood up to them," she whispered fiercely. Christmas that year was at Jenna's house. Not everyone came. Not Mom. Not Dad. And honestly, that was okay. Because what was there instead was laughter. Stories. Kids running through the living room. Real warmth. No facades. Alex pulled me aside later, misty-eyed. This feels like a real family. It did. 2 years later. The article I wrote had gone viral. Not Kardashian viral, but enough to be noticed. I was invited to podcasts, Zoom panels, even spoke at a university lecture hall once. I kept writing. More essays, personal pieces, even a book deal eventually. Titled Rooms I Paid For, Reclaiming Space in the House That Hurt Me. The title had been Alex's idea. My parents still hadn't reached out. But I'd heard things through Jenna. They'd moved to a 1-bedroom rental on the edge of town. Dad was still bitter. Mom still insisted she did nothing wrong. Part of me wondered if they'd ever truly realize what they'd lost. But most of me didn't care anymore. Forgiveness, I'd learned, didn't mean letting someone hurt you twice. It just meant letting go of the fantasy that they'd ever become the people you needed. I had chosen a better path. A real life, built with love, earned with effort, and held together by respect. That was enough. Last Christmas, Jenna and I stood side by side in her kitchen, preparing food while music played softly from her phone. She handed me a glass of wine and raised her brow. So next year, your place? I smiled. Absolutely. She leaned in. You know, Mom sent a card this week. Oh. She said she saw your book in the store. Said you were always a good writer. Jenna rolled her eyes. Didn't even acknowledge the subject. We both laughed. Because what else could you do? I opened a cabinet, pulling down a serving dish. If she ever wants to talk, really talk, I'm open to it. But I'm not reaching out first. You shouldn't have to. Alex entered the kitchen with a tray of cookies. You two gossiping again. Always, Jenna said. Perfect. Then you can explain why you put all the marshmallows in your cocoa and left me with 3. Because you're my future husband, not my equal, I said dryly. His eyes lit up. Oh, future husband now. I froze. Had I actually said that? I looked at Jenna, who was grinning so hard I thought she might burst. Alex's eyes were soft. You said it, he whispered. I meant it, I replied. And in the glow of fairy lights and kitchen warmth, with a family chosen and a future reclaimed, I finally understood. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for your heart is walk away from the table where love is conditional and build a new one where every seat is earned.